Welcome to Team DataFam Tableau User Group meeting number 44. This tag works a little bit differently to others because we cater for the presenter and the audience. So we arrange different meetings so we can get the best presenters from around the world. Obviously record our meetings, put them online, everyone else can see them later on as well. We do still have some TC25 presentations coming up soon. One of them's in 2 days' time. But you don't need to present at TC25. If you want to present on anything that's mildly Tableau related, get in touch. We'll find a time slot for you. At this stage, I'm looking for schedules for next year, but that's fine. Next year's not all that long away. And if you've got any questions, please email me at team.datafam@gmail.com. But today we have Raunak talking about marketing attribution dashboards in Tableau, whole heap of information about CRM, touchpoints, data, dashboards, etc. You're the expert on the subject, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Chris. Well, first off, congrats. I didn't know, so I'm first time in this group, so I didn't know that you guys are on a roll at 44 meetings and soon 50. That sounds amazing. So congrats. But I got in touch with Chris, just sharing interest to share some of my learnings along the course related to Tableau. So I'm really excited to chat with you all about kind of how we get from data chaos to clarity, especially as it relates to marketing analytics. So things like web analytics, sales analytics, etc. But how do we package it up in the form of a dashboard? So with that, I'd like to make a quick introduction about myself. So as you know, as I just shared, my name is Raunak. Currently, I'm working as a senior manager within GTM Analytics here in San Francisco for a company called Intercom. It's a leading B2B company which develops AI customer service tools. One of our products is called Fin. If you haven't checked this out, please do. And here's my contact details. But in essence, my background is I've led analytics at B2B companies, have over 10 years of experience doing so. And I'm really passionate about things like AI-driven attribution, finding ways to scale data pipelines, which I'll get to in a second, and like in passionate about sharing those learnings in the form of open data source, community, etc. And I do have a master's degree before I joined the working life. So again, my LinkedIn is here. Feel free to connect with me. I'll be happy to respond and connect with everyone here. All right. So getting into the presentation, um, from data chaos to clear answers. So what is all the fuss about data chaos in marketing? So essentially, marketing, like the data is presented in a very fragmented puzzle. It's like because it's scattered across different sources, different campaigns, different platforms. So think about Meta, think about Google, think about all the different CTV ads, etc. Trade Desk is one platform we use. So all the data is across different sources and organizing it is quite challenging. So essentially, building a unified pipeline is essentially the first step, which is needed for building a dashboard. So that's what I want to bring forth in this presentation here. Is like I like to share my journey doing so at companies which I mentioned previously at Intercom, Stripe, and Atlassian. And along the way, I like to give some sort of a blueprint that has worked for me, and hopefully, the audience here can also benefit from it. Cool. So why is marketing data so chaotic? Essentially, as I mentioned, multiple platforms, CRMs. So, we use Salesforce. We also have HubSpot. So, different CRM platforms having the customer record. So, it's hard to kind of mesh them together for a single source record. That's one. Ad networks, I already alluded to it a little bit. Think about all the different ad platforms out there and like increasingly more so. How do we kind of mesh everything together? And then the most voluminous is web analytics, which is like our website data. So you can imagine a company size of Intercom where we have millions of users visiting us every year. Like each interaction generates a record. So making sure we are capturing all the important signals from that data is important for marketing analytics. So that's one of the biggest reason is the scale of it is quite big. So we need to like do a lot of work to process it. I'll get to that again in the future slides. Second point is data is siloed. I think, it's like every source has slightly different versions. So like, in Marketo, we call it leads. There is Salesforce campaign, then there's sales tool. How do we make sure that all the different metrics are connected with, and it tells a story at the end of the day in a dashboard. And then inconsistent structure, that's not new, right? Like we have different fields, different formats. So like that makes it a little bit difficult. And then conflicting metrics. So like, Marketo leads is a good example. Like Marketo has its own lead ID, but also like a lot of times Salesforce has a member ID. So, it sounds same, but it's sometimes different in terms of how it's defined. We need to kind of, as analysts, needs to wrangle data instead of like, making sure everything is correct. So a lot of time is spent in kind of wrangling the data instead of delivering insights. So with all of that, um, sorry for moving around, um, structure matters. So right, like when the marketing data is structured, connected, and standardized, there's no more chasing of numbers or reconciling between dashboards. There's one source of truth for every channel, campaign, and cohort, and there's faster, more reliable answers for every stakeholder. So with when we do all of this, what changes is like analysts stop wrangling data, start delivering insights, execs get clarity, confidence, and executive ready views. And essentially all of us speak the same data language. So I have a tagline which I really play by is like clarity begins the moment all our data plays by the same rules. Cool. So getting into the meat of it, um, what I use and what I have practiced along the course of my career is this kind of modular open source stack. You can call it open source. Sometimes we're paying for licensing. So I'm not like really into what is open source versus closed source, but these are the tools which I have used. As I mentioned, marketing data is massive, billions of impressions, CRM records, web events, and ad touch points from siloed system. And then a modular open source stack powers real performance and flexibility. So some of the tools which we use is like Fivetran. What it helps us with is automated data sync from every channel. Then kind of, the next layer is DBT, which is really essential for centralized transformation. And then there's a concept of surrogate keys, which I'll get to in a second, is that make sure that all the different inputs of data from various stream have a unique key so that there is a traceable record for Tableau when it's like trying to refresh the data. So that's a concept which has worked for us, and I swear by it. And then the next step is Snowflake, like that's our internal warehouse, secure, scalable, and we have a lot of like all the data pipes to that. And then all the processing happens, which then leads to Tableau for a clean visualization and flexible dashboarding. So oftentimes as stakeholders, we just get to see the final version of a dashboard, but there's a lot more steps to it before like the data is ready for us to be able to analyze it. Um, Few things as well, which is really handy in marketing analytics, is an aggregate table. You have a lot of different tables, like visits, you have leads, you have campaigns. So aggregating it for speed is really important, especially when it comes to performing Tableau dashboard. And then the last step in marketing analytics or like the attribution journey is the different kind of attribution model. I'm not sure if everyone here has a marketing analytics background, but essentially attribution is the model which helps assign credits to a conversion. There are a variety of attribution models like Markov chain, Shapley models, MTA, etc. And we serve most of them in-house. Like, I have built models along the way to help answer things for different purposes. So pre-computing this attribution is really important. And what we do is like we have pipelines before this aggregate version of the table, which has all the models, all the different attribution model output, and then we aggregate it together. So overall, what I want to highlight here is um, kind of a modular stack of how you transform your data, how you have business logic, and then aggregate it is really important to kind of have a performant pipeline. And I have personally faced a lot of times troubles with non-performant dashboard where it takes a long time to load. So incremental pipeline is really important, where the dashboard is up to date, it stays fresh, and is always ready for latest and greatest insights. So in that, I've used Tableau Prep, which has helped me quite a bit. All right, I'll keep moving along, but feel free to interject me if anyone has any questions at any point in time. Um, So with that concept of mind of the open source stack of how to process data, this is an example which I wanted to kind of share, wherein like how we bring marketing metrics together with DBT. So what is shown here is just three versions of different stream of data. So first is called ad platform, which is all our platform metrics, wherein we also store our spend data. So essentially, think about like the how much you spend, how much impressions you got, like on all the other metrics comes to this stream. Then the next one is CRM and Salesforce, right? Like the CRM data. So that kind of gets stored in a fact table, and then web analytics as well. So this is just one illustration where there are three different streams of data, all sitting in a fact table. So but we need to make a dashboard which kind of cuts across all three streams. So therein where comes a transformation layer in the form of DBT for us, wherein all the logic, all the joins, all the unions, all the standardization happens and comes out a marketing unified funnel metric aggregated table on top of which is the marketing dashboard, which I'll flash to in a second, is built on. So um, it's very important to do the modeling work properly. And as I mentioned, the surrogate key is because every stream has different dimensions. It's very important to have like one unique identifier for Tableau when it's trying to like re-pull the data or like update extract to have a unique identifier. And I've used this functionality in DBT, which if you just pass all the columns, it just generates like a MDI5 hashed version, and it like serves perfectly as a surrogate key for Tableau, and it just enables fast refreshes and reliable aggregation. That's one trick which I've learned, and I kind of use it pretty much in all my pipelines. Cool. Um, So we collected all the data, we processed it, made it performant, and then pushed it to Tableau. From there on, it comes the art of like how you want to surface the data on your dashboard. So here I'm presenting an old example from one of my previous jobs, which is most of the companies want to have like a funnel view of all the different metrics working for the business. So funnel is right, like how many people come in, how many people engage with your thing, and then how many people convert. But there are various levels of metrics in them. So you can kind of start to appreciate that there are a variety of metrics which needs to be served to answer a set of questions. So what I'm presenting here in the right screenshot is an example where I was working for a company called Atlassian. Most of you are from Australia, so this must be a familiar name. Um, and it's an old example, so I'm okay sharing it with here. It's basically, there are multiple products of that in that company, right? So this dashboard was like a company-wide dashboard, which helped, execs of every different product line like come in and get a feel for how is their particular product performing in terms of goals. So here are some of the principles and practices I've used to kind of make it easy to read, despite it being very information dense. So, one dashboard, all funnel stages in one view. So like you can see there is like multiple metrics in here, like signups, purchases, expansion, retentions, tracked all in one pane. Dynamic KPIs. So, like week two, I mean, these are like company specific metrics. So it's just like calling off like we have dynamic KPIs. And then the main thing which I've learned is the real-time goal versus actuals. So, like basically the color coded, like as you can see, the color coded, one second, what is coming in? Yeah, the color coded green, yellow, red helps visually kind of figure out what's working, what's not working, or which product is on track, etc. And then the action-based ability to explore deep dive, right? Like, for example, I just action clicked into Jira Service Management, and then all the metrics auto populates for that, and then it gives like a OKR scorecard. Um, and then you can kind of get a feel for it, and then even drill further to go and like inspect a certain metric. um, with that we had year-on-year comparisons, annotation for launches, etc. So it's a very dense and like a rich pane, but it kind of essentially served as a landing page for pretty much a lot of the different stakeholders involved, and it gave them a pretty good starting point. From there on, based on the curiosity, they would like drill deep, dig deep, drill further, and like go and figure out their metrics. And one other thing I wanted to call out is um, a data like on the top right, if you can see, there's links to data quality, health, data refresh status, and like a link to a metric central repository. These are things which often are not paid a lot of attention to in my experience. But in a big company, in a big org, like people often questioning like the validity of a metric or data, like is it fresh, etc. So just having that outright in the form of widgets is super helpful so that you can avoid those questions from the stakeholders back to you. I will see. I think there is a question. Let me just quickly see the chat. Hopefully, cool. All right. Yeah, and then I just wanted to also highlight few of my used dashboards, or like some very common views, but like why I feel like it's important. So for example, in this one, what I wanted to highlight is it's just showing like signups and cost per signup, which is like a fairly commonly well understood metric. But I feel like oftentimes we go for the hard hitting or very fancy charts, like Tableau has variety of charts one can publish, but in a business setting where really it's the executive is short on time and is really interested to get a narrative out of a metric, choosing the right metrics helps narrate business insight clearly. Um, and then when you're presenting a metric, like it's good to have at least 2 years worth of historical to get an intuitive sense of trends. So like for example, if I just showed you this chart and I started from FY 2019 Q3 onwards, like you would have missed on the actual thing which is happening is like despite us increasing on signups, our cost per or like cost per sign up, which is like how much we're paying for each sign up through paid channels, is declining. So it's like an efficiency story going on here quarter on quarter, and especially along that transition from Q2 to Q3, because we adopted something called as marginal ROI. So again, it's very marketing specific example, but my point here is choosing the right metrics, choosing the right time frame, and annotations in any graph like really helps communicate insights clearly. And I feel like oftentimes we miss out on that in the interest of like serving some cooler version. Like this data could have been probably presented in a much cooler looking chart, which is totally doable, but that doesn't necessarily always serve the purpose. Is my opinion of like how to organize the data. Another example I want to give is this funnel intelligence analysis dashboard or like a tab. One concept I want to kind of bring forward is this notion of certified. So, within organizations, especially the size of Atlassian and others, like there's often like a lot of different dashboards out there, and there's a lot of different stakeholders. So like it's hard to know which one to go to, like which one is correct, is it done right? So we actually had a committee which we made internally, whose job was to make sure like the data source underneath the dashboard and like the metrics has a owner. And then we had like a certification process internally where like tier 0, tier 1, tier 2, etc. concept. And this dashboard was like a tier 1 because it served not like the company level but like one level down, but it at least got us a certified badge. And as an owner of the dashboard, my responsibility was like it is fresh, it is updated, there's a metric central link. Like you can see, the one screenshot I have has a data quality health warning, but like essentially I would get alerts on my inbox to make sure like the health is on the green side. This sounds trivial, but I think it really pays a dividend in the future to like make sure your dashboard is trusted and like well used across the company. So that's one small thing, but very important. Um, and then in this one, like this example of a dashboard, what I want to highlight is again, we really went with like logos and things familiar with people. So like you clearly know a logo of your product. So you click on that, and then all the metrics populated for that in this case, Jira Service Management. So it's very simple action-based filtering going on here, nothing fancy, but it's how we present the data, right? Like there is this cumulative target line going on by week. So the first chart is like a line chart, cumulative for signups, actuals. Again, don't go into specific, but like what I'm trying to highlight is people really want to know, like for their particular thing, for their particular metric, are we meeting goals or not? And then ability to time trend it. So, we decide to go with like this cumulative chart, but then also plot it daily so that we can see, right, like which day did it jump over 100, when did it come down, etc. And then the next step is taking that cumulative chart and breaking it down into daily version. So like the same metric is now presented to us in a daily format. Um, and I mean, the left and the right, the difference is one is measuring 70% of goal and one is measuring 100% of goals. We had that construct of OKR score, but essentially just ability to plot and visually kind of check out, right? Like, is the daily actuals overbeating the goals or not? And then we had like a conditional formatting of green, red. If it is above the target, it's all green, but you can see clearly like on some of the weekends, it went below the target for the weekend, so it dipped into red. So kind of a conditional formatting, even on the line, really helped appeal to the audience, like quickly glance through, okay, there's this one weekend where it was a problem, but it's not like a big deal if you kind of look over it entirely. So again, my whole point about this screenshot is like simple coloring of green, yellow, red helps communicate insights clearly, and I often swear by it. Like I keep it very simple to make sure that execs know, like pretty much everyone knows that green is good, red is bad, etc. So kind of sticking to common colors. Let me see if there's a question. Cool. I think there are fans of Atlassian in this group. um, All right. So kind of moving to the next part is like what not to do, like pitfalls and lesson learned from my experience. Um, so it's mostly like overloading a dashboard with too many filters, slows performance and confuse users. I've done it many times where I've just presented every freaking filter I can think of to the user. So and thinking that I'm giving them options, but when you actually look at the reality, it confuses them, and obviously it also has performance issues because if you're trying to like apply a filter on every sheet across your dashboard, it's gonna make it slow. So I generally have this question in mind, like whenever I'm adding a filter, is it going to serve more than at least 50% of my audience? If it is too specific, I'm not going to apply it to a dashboard level filter. Like that's one principle I have in mind. And I'm not sure if it's right or wrong, but like that's just one general practice. Um, then second one is like pre-aggregation, right? Like I've seen people would connect to the raw data set and like make it a production level dashboard. It's kind of a recipe waiting for disaster because a raw extract data, like if you have all your calculations in Tableau server and like you're connecting live to a big table like a web analytics with millions of rows, like it's gonna be a long time from a performance issue. So I think aggregation is really important. Failure to centralize data definitions. Again, like I've shown you screenshots of how we've done it. Like I didn't show you the exact document, but like it has a link, and then you can actually go and check out the entire metric, etc. And then like building for one stakeholder type. Like you can't assume that everyone will come to your dashboard and have the same context, and maybe everyone wants a different altitude, right? Like an exec might not want to see the drill down performance of Jira Service Management. Like they might just be okay with a snapshot, but then a line leader would want to look at the individual metrics. So having that functionality is super important. And then lastly is like ignoring data quality signals. Right? Like we have these warnings which come up, not actioning on it is kind of reporting liability, right? You just have data dashboard out there which is not up to date. It is missing data, etc. So it's not a good practice. So all in all, to say, these are like something which I really advise folks not to do, and like some of the lessons learned from my experience. Cool. So just to wrap up what I presented, and kind of if I were to share like a blueprint of like what makes a successful Tableau dashboard in an organization, it's not about charts. It's not just about charts, but it's really about like speed, clarity, and like ability to take actions from the data. Um, for example, right, like I shared some of the screenshots where, like some of the products were meeting its goal while some were not. So it really help it provides a bias for action. Like the next genuine thing an exec will do is like start a Slack with the product group who's not meeting the goals and like, drill down further. So like that was the intent of that particular dashboard. Second is like design performance from the start, automate what you can, and make your metrics both dynamic and trustworthy. So point here is a lot of time people make the dashboard and then think about the data pipeline as an afterthought, but that's really not the right way to do it. I would much rather spend way more time in the pipelining of things and like making sure the aggregate table is performant and ready with all the dimensions I have. And before I like, jump into the actual visualization of things, because this is not like a one stop, like once done and forget kind of a thing, right? Like this is a dashboard which will go into production, will probably be refreshed every day, week, quarter, whatever. So it is long lasting. Therefore, like having that upfront investment is really important. And lastly, like executive views, um, um, like you have to build for every audience in mind is my point here. Like you cannot just think that one view is going to serve everyone. So like having using Tableau's techniques like actions, parameters, etc., which I've used in bulk, is kind of a good way to get around it. With that, yeah, I think this has come to the end of my prepared talk. I'm happy to take any questions or anything if you guys have any questions for me.
There was just some chat on the side about how good Atlassian is, or maybe how bad Atlassian is at times, depends on what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, Atlassian's products and the complexity behind it's the whole different story. Although I'm a pro Atlassian person, I think it serves a lot of different use cases across the board. So I'm a fan, but yeah, I understand it sometimes can be tricky, especially when it comes to migrating things.
I saw something a long time ago, and they said, in a job description, when they go, "Oh, we use Jira differently," it's like Jira is built for everybody to use it differently. Like no two people use it the same way. So one of Paul's questions was, would you give an example of an aggregate and where it is stored and accessed for dashboard?
Like an aggregate, like I think maybe I should have got it here, but essentially, an aggregate is, okay, let me go back to this slide. I think that will help. Yeah. So like, an aggregate is this table, which I'm pointing out here, which is like this marketing unified funnel metrics. Oops, did I move? Sorry. Yeah, marketing unified funnel metrics table. So this is what I mean by aggregate, because in my ultimate dashboard, where I showed you, right, like I have all the various metrics which is relevant in marketing analytics. It comes from different sources. So essentially, an aggregate table is where I've aggregated all the metrics along variety of dimensions, and there's a row for each metric along those dimensions, and then I'm pushing that up to Tableau. So for example, spend, the first one in this, it is available by day, it is available by platform, maybe by device, and that's about it, like region, etc. But then when it comes to my CRM and Salesforce, I have way more information about, like the customer, like which account team it is assigned to, which territory it belongs to. But that necessarily is not a dimension which carry forwards to spend. So how do I aggregate it, right? Like that's what I mean by aggregating it in a way where it's all in one data source. I could have connected it to three different tables in Tableau. Like that's also something I've done, and like have joins, etc. in the sheet. But that from my experience, it's just a little bit time consuming to refresh different data sources on the fly on Tableau server. Therefore, we kind of aggregate it in this table which I'm showing, and then null out the dimension which does not apply. So, like for example, account territory and account assignment will be nulled out for the ad spend metric. And that's just one flavor of it. I also see another question. Maybe I can read it aloud before answering it. Cool. You mentioned be careful about filters. what if we serve different marketing teams, region, channel, function, and each of them would like to look at data specific to them, webinar in US versus trade show in EMEA / certain city, what is the maximum number of filters should we have in a dashboard? That's an excellent question. Um, um, so um, so there's no right or wrong, but I generally apply a principle of like not having more than at least 5 to 6 filters in a view of a dashboard. And again, some of the filters can have long list of values. Like for example, like you mentioned region channel, that's usually a fair list, but campaign is an example which is a good one where when you pull up campaign, like it will have hundreds if not thousands of entries of different campaign names, right? Like SFDC campaign name. If you all have looked at it, it kind of attaches a timestamp in beginning of every campaign. So presenting that to the audience and expecting them to like search for it and filter on it doesn't make sense. So what we do is we have a taxonomy and a mapping before before we present those campaign names. So like in this aggregate layer, we also pipe in a taxonomy, which is like these different 5, 10 campaigns belong to one meta campaign. So like we only push that parent campaign to the dashboard and not push the raw filter. So again, it's just a practice which involves which needs the stakeholder involved. Like I can't solely decide on my end as a Tableau developer, like, hey, this is the 5 things to group. So like there's a taxonomy project which oftentimes goes in marketing analytics where we have set rules in place to kind of map different campaigns to a parent campaign, and we push that as opposed to the raw one.
Perfect. No other questions. We might continue on. If there is other questions, just type them in the chat or just unmute and ask if you want to. So there's Raunak's contact details, both LinkedIn and the speaker, the link to when he was speaking at, or when you were part of Atlassian, I think that was a few years ago.
Yeah, it's like one of the online spotlights available. So I shared a slightly older version, but yeah, you can get to know me through that as well.
Yep, no, that's cool. And as I said at the start, this section's called Fast 5, so it's just 5 quick questions, quick answers, AI-generated questions for this session. But if anyone wants to submit some questions, I can use those as well and give you credit. But these are just AI-generated, so I know that you haven't seen the questions before. They're fairly simple questions, but if you want to pass, feel free to pass at any stage.
Sounds
So
good.
the first question is, when you tell a story with data, do you prefer a clear narrative or an open discovery?
I prefer a clear narrative.
Yep. And how do you feel about using Tableau's default color schemes?
I don't like them. I usually go with slightly personalized, version. Like we have something called as an intercom palette, which we use, etc. So yeah, I think because I am in B2B, like we have to default to personalized palettes. So I personally don't use them a lot.
Yep, that's fine. And how do you decide what to include in a dashboard?
I mean, so the question is, how do you say what not to include, right? In a dashboard. So yeah, I mean, again, going back to something I shared, right? Like, is it serving the narrative and is it serving the purpose which the audience will walk away with? So it's kind of, having a narrative in mind, vetting the data, and then only bringing forward the rows, the filters, the dimensions. Like, as I mentioned, like I could have probably shown the raw campaign names. That's convenient, but then going that extra step of mapping it to certain parent campaigns, that's and showing only a limited set of values to the user is what I do. So like that's a long-winded answer, but it goes back to like having kind of a narrative in mind in order to make a decision of what not to show in a dashboard.
And what kind of dashboard do you wish you had more time to create?
Oh, what kind of dashboard? I mean, I oftentimes have to spend a lot of times producing exact level summary views, etc. I really enjoyed the time trending and like ability to drill down ways of dashboards, like we call it like metric dive. Just to explain to folks, is like you start with a metric, all the different things are connected to each other, and then it's like you can take one metric and like dimension it by as many pivots as possible, like at least 3 to 4, and then you can overlay each of the dimensions on your metric to kind of get a way more granular cut of the data. So I think it just like opens your imaginations, and it helps you answer the business questions at your own fingertip. It's like writing SQL on the fly, and I really enjoy making those, but I sometimes don't find time because work commitments, etc.
Awesome. Yep. And finally, what's your go-to chart when you're not sure what to use?
I just default to automatic in Tableau. I trust it enough, but I often find myself changing from line to bar because I think people resonate with bar more than line. It's just something.
Yep, perfect. That's good. Okay, so our next TUG meeting is in 2 days' time from almost about now. So Roshni's repeating her TC25 talk on accessibility matters and how we should use universal design in Tableau. So again, one meeting is just those times around the world. You can use a QR code or register on the website as well. But this recording and a lot of other recordings from this TUG and a lot of other TUGs are all available on YouTube at Team DataFam or on the Apple or Spotify podcast as well. Obviously audio only on the podcast, but sometimes you can listen to those when you're not sitting at a screen. Go back and watch the YouTube recording later on. And if anyone needs to get in contact with me, the email is team.datafam@gmail.com. But thank you for that. It was awesome to see how well, what I call that is the modern data stack is Fivetran, DBT, Snowflake, Tableau, but it's modular enough so you can take things or take parts of that in and out as you need to do that as well. So thank you. It was a good presentation.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. One more thing is IronViz is on at the moment, the IronViz qualifiers. You need to submit before November 21. That's Seattle time. So we sort of, on this side of the world, we got delayed by a day for a start, but we get a free day at the end in return. But the theme this year is food and drink. So go to the IronViz website, research what your entry should look like. It can look like anything. What you should do, but roughly around the theme of food and drink, and make sure you submit by November 21. If you're in the top 10, you get some sort of swag prize, I think it is, and the top 3 are on stage at TC next year, building an entire dashboard and story and everything in 20 minutes. So that's pretty awesome to see. Thanks again, guys, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, see ya.